The internet has changed everything. The amount of information out there has changed everything. And there's a gigantic tide of people, we the people, standing up around the world. And yeah, they can start wars, they can start revolutions. They cannot stop this tide. They greatly underestimated how powerfully people are reacting to the potential to be free. And when I'm talking free, I'm talking like, U.S. Revolutionary type of free. Those days when, when we broke away from England and really decided, oh my God, we can be free human beings. I think that's what they're underestimating in all those Middle Eastern countries. That's what they're underestimating throughout the world, is that there's 7 billion people who are just dying for freedom right now. They have been strangled. We have been strangled for so long by this group of ruling elite that we've hit our point. We've hit our max out point. This will spread to the United States. This will, probably when the banking crash happens and everybody loses everything in their bank accounts and their 401ks and things like that, we will stand up and we will say, here's how we, the people, want to live. Here's how we have a constitution. When they interview Ron Paul and call him crazy because he wants to pull our troops out of every other nation and he wants to go back to gold and silver, they're calling the Constitution crazy. Yeah. And that's what gets me all riled up is those people who say Ron Paul's ideas are radical and it won't work in today's day and age. It's not true. If we went back to the Constitution, it solves so many of the problems that are out there.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Bix, and I think it's become really transparent. Like, for instance, Stuart Rhodes, who founded Oath Keepers. I mean, you couldn't find a more knowledgeable, constitutionally based man, a former military man, who just wants to get the word out to the military, current military, and the veterans to not enforce unconstitutional orders should they come down, to not enforce martial law should it come down unconstitutionally by any sitting president. And you see him go on a show like Chris Matthews and be maligned for something as absolutely fundamentally obviously good as wanting to support the Constitution.
You have on your list, you will not obey any orders to invade or subjugate any state that asserts its sovereignty. I guess I'm too normal, because when I first read that, sir, I thought you were talking about we wouldn't invade Iraq, which is a sovereign country. But you're not. You laugh. This is why people think you're crazy.
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's transparent, and it makes you wonder who the heck Chris Matthews is working for.
For the military, they've been trained to follow orders, and they feel kind of helpless individually. But they know why we're in Afghanistan. They know why we're in Iraq, and they know why there's saber rattling going to Iran. They're not dumb. They are tuned in. It will take a spark for the military, for everybody in the United States and around the world, and the sparks are happening right now in Egypt and Sudan and other places in the Middle East. That spark will happen in the U.S. when the first large bank crashes. It might be J.P. Morgan. It might be the WikiLeaks event that's coming on. They're saying it's Bank of America. Well, Bank of America owns almost most of the mortgages, at least that the banks own, and they were all fraudulent. The whole mortgage debacle is about to blow up, and it does have the power to destroy all banking systems, all fiat money systems of the world. What people don't really realize, that term "too big to fail." Too big to fail is a term used because they're trying to scare people, but because also it is a reality. These banks that are too big to fail, people don't say, oh, okay, what is the consequences of failure? Mm-hmm. The consequences of failure of a bank is, all their derivatives, all their off-balance sheet transactions, all those get wiped clean, and they're so interconnected with other banks. There's not one bank today that can survive one of these large banks failing. Not one bank, not even the Federal Reserve. There's so many hidden transactions, and every single bank relies on every other bank because they're leveraged 20 or 30 to 1.
Well, that really bridges us into the silver bullet, which is, physical silver and physical gold as the one hedge against a complete and total disaster, as the one way you can protect yourself. And I'm passionate about it because when I woke up to the incredible opportunity that physical silver represents and physical gold, it was just a smoking gun for me. It was an aha moment. So as we get into your article, Melt the Witch, I just want to first bring up these global settlement conference calls, which have sort of gotten hot around the internet, especially in this little niche that we're in. And you, of course, being ahead of the curve, like you so often are, you already have written a response to that called The Road to Roota Theory versus Secret Investment Pools, CMKX Settlements, and Global Settlement Theories. Now, what's your take on these conference calls, Bix? It's really a rhetorical question because I think I know.
I don't think it is a disinformation type of situation. I think these funds are real, these people are real, the investors are real. It's big part of what the good guys around the world have been, fighting to take down the bad guys. The problem I have with all this, all these funds, it links into the Road to Roota theory. It links into a lot of other things that make sense in the battles that go on behind the scenes. What I have a problem with is their end game. I don't think they fully understand what would happen if we have a fiat money meltdown, which any of these big banks go, and that's what's going to happen. They are saying there's all these misappropriated funds that Bush and all these bad guys had stashed away in dark pools, is what they call them, and we're going to get those funds and we're going to bring them back and we're going to save the world with these funds. These funds they're talking about are not backed by anything. They are fiat money entries, electronic, most of them. There is no need for these funds. If they just cleared everything except these funds and then reallocated those funds, first of all, they'd be in charge of reallocating it.
Right.
The kind of the rebirth of a monetary system when a fiat system crashes is historically has always been organic. It has always gone back to gold and silver.
Well, and that gets me to what I was really concerned about as it was related to, so much of the conversation that people were getting excited about these conference calls and passing them around on YouTube and via email. And it's this idea that if you just buy the Iraqi dinar, there's going to be this stupendously fantastic, revaluation of the dinar. And I'm just so skeptical of that because I know, as you know, that when fiat currencies end, it ends badly for all fiat currencies. And when we already know that the magic bullet is physical silver because it's under-owned, it's highly manipulated, it's rare, it's precious, it's so many reasons to own it. Why get tangled up in this maybe lottery promise of the dinar making you rich? You
hit the nail on the head. The whole dinar revaluation, that revaluing the dinar, revaluing all currencies so that globalization continues is not what the Fed Boston comic is saying. That comic is saying that with the crash of fiat money, trade stops between countries, which is a more organic way of looking at it. Once you lose faith in the fiat currency, all fiat currencies will lose faith. How do you rebuild faith? They're talking about backing it with gold and silver. Why even back a currency at the beginning? Why not just have gold and silver? I guarantee you, if we tried to back the U.S. dollar with gold and silver, and then said, okay, at any time you can redeem your dollars for gold and silver, people are going to line up at the bank to do that. Money must be organic for it to work. Fiat money does not work. The only reason fiat money has worked so long, and this is the longest that fiat money has lasted since 1971, when Nixon went off the gold standard, and it wasn't even a real gold standard. This is the longest it's lasted, but the only reason it's lasted is because of Stephen DeVoe and Alan Greenspan writing their computer programs to rig the gold market since that time. That's the only reason it's lasted this long. And now even Alan Greenspan's coming out saying, hey, we need to go back on the gold standard.
Okay.
He came out with that, and everybody was blown away. And I'm like, it's obvious. Read what I write about Greenspan in The Road to Roota. Read what he's said about globalization being on the brink of collapsing. to say things like that comes right in line with what I've been talking about the whole time. Is Greenspan was the king gold bug, and he got into the Federal Reserve. He was put there by Reagan so he could crash the system and reinstitute a gold standard.
Well, just to be clear, though, when you say Reagan put Greenspan into power, who's the power behind the throne, though? Was it truly the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers? I mean, who really hand-selects these guys? Who hand-selected Bernanke, for instance? Well,
Bernanke was selected by Greenspan, I believe. I do think Bernanke is not a bad guy. He's not a bad guy. He's working the road to Roota theory just like Greenspan had. Create as much money as you can to destroy the system. And that's what he is doing. He doesn't work for the Rothschilds. He doesn't work for the banking cabal. The Hank Paulson, that's another story. We tried to take down the system in 2008. Paulson came in with a gun to Congress and said, give us, what was it, $800 billion or whatever he said, and then they leveraged it up to $10 trillion and more.
Right.
But that only bought them a couple of years. We are at the point now, as in the next couple months, where that stimulus has all been washed clean, and now you're seeing states and local governments starting to go under. You're going to see a fight over the budget deficit and the national deficit because we have enough congressmen in the U.S. Congress now who know what's going on and have been instructed not to prolong this any longer. Our citizens are struggling and dying because they're still implementing this game that's been going on since 1971.
Well, I hope you're right. I mean, your theory is so contrarian and counterintuitive that's what I love about it, and I love the fact that it gives me hope. It gives us all a bit of hope that, this thing might have a good ending. But I have to say, as it relates to these new Republicans that just came in, and they were more than happy to reinstate the Patriot Act, and I think they're trying to make it permanent. So, again, the white knight, where's our white knight in shining armor, Bix?
There's definitely been delays on this road, and there's been, they're not going to reinstate anything for too long. And remember, once fiat money goes down, all laws are off the books. You said that the road to Roota theory is controversial and contrarian. That's the thing. When you think about it, what's going on in today's monetary system doesn't make any sense at all. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense that gold goes down when wars start, or that the U.S. dollar gets kicked up because we're pretending that things are turning around. The unemployment rate is up in the high teens. It's not 9 or closing on 10%. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Nobody even believes it anymore. The problem is the contrarian aspects of life are what we are fed every day. It makes no sense monetarily. It makes no sense at all to anybody who's studied economics. And even the theory of economics has been, kind of built into our brains as this is how it's supposed to be because the bad guys wanted us to learn economics as they are today. So when this all falls apart, which I believe to be, right now I'm looking at the end of March when it really starts getting ugly. When this happens, all rules will go right out the windows. All the theories on economics, all the theories on what is money will go right out the window, and we'll be able to go back, start from scratch. They're calling it debt jubilee. All debt will be erased because all assets are erased as well, at least electronic and fiat assets.
This concludes Part 2. Click here for Part 3.